What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez has broke out and stated that I am number one pound for pound over Vasily Lomachenko, over Terence Crawford. None of these guys have the resume like I do, so therefore I feel I should be number one. You know, this is surprising for Canelo. I know he's mentioned himself on the pound for pound rankings, but in the recent past, it hasn't really been something that he really talked a lot about. You know, I don't think this was an interest 4 or 5 months ago. You know what I mean? And it's interesting for him to say, hey, I am number one pound for pound over these guys due to my resume, due to my experience, due to everything that I've done in the ring. And Canelo Alvarez, as far as resume go, let me counterpunch this real quick, that you guys understand. I agree with what he says as far as resume, experience, but I do not agree that he's number one pound for pound. Why? For one, Canelo Alvarez has fought some of the top fighters. He's fought damn near everyone except the exception probably for Manny Pacquiao and Juan Manuel Marquez, because they were smaller than him, okay? And he wanted to fight Marquez because Marquez was, popping off so much, trash talk, right? But other than that, he's fought basically everyone from junior, middleweight, and he's fought a lot of guys. But this is the problem I have with Canelo. Canelo is not consistent with what he does. When Canelo beat Danny Jacobs, which was a close fight, which a lot of people thought he lost. I thought he won. I thought he beat Canelo. It was a close fight, but I think he beat Danny Jacobs. I think the punches that he landed in Danny Jacobs were more decisive. I think, there were more telltale punches that he was fighting, that he was hitting Jacobs with. Jacobs did catch him with some good shots, but, that was a close fight, though, okay? Well, the consistency should have came in with him fighting Andrade. But instead of Andrade, you fight Rocky Fielding, okay? And you put him down like a sack of potatoes. He couldn't take it. He beat him easier than he beat Beefy Smith. He fought Lara. A lot of people thought that he lost. I thought that he lost. I don't think it was even close. I think it was 8-4. Okay, you can argue 7-5. But Austin Trout, I think he beat Austin Trout. He definitely lost to Mayweather. That was his first official loss. But a lot of these fights, because you move up in weight, and we don't really know what conditions Kovalev's in. We know he won his last fight, but he had a tough go. He had a young guy that was inexperienced that, I think he punched himself out, honestly. So you're fighting that guy instead of fighting Bivol, Beterbiev. A lot of these guys he could have fought. Callum Smith was up there. That was a matchroom guy. That fight could have been orchestrated easy. He didn't want those tough fucking fights. He wanted fights that he knew, hey, I can win. Because the fights that he took that were difficult, like the Golovkin fights, a lot of people think Golovkin beat him twice. So I don't see what merits Canelo Alvarez due to, sure, you win, but if your wins are debatable, I don't think you should be considered pound for pound, like number one pound for pound. He should be in there, but not number one. You see the difference between Terence Crawford's performances and Lomachenko's performances? On top of, Terence being undefeated, Lomachenko had that one loss. But these guys have beat their fighters convincingly. Okay? You look at Terence Bud Crawford's last 3 fights, and then you compare that to Canelo's, right? What's Canelo's last 3 fights? Let's look at this here. Canelo fought. His last fight was against Jacobs, right? Didn't he fight Jacobs last? Jacobs. I think before that it was Rocky Fielding. So Jacobs, Rocky Fielding, and Golovkin, right? Now, 2 out of 3 of those fights were debatable. I mean, like you got to do more. I think fighters like that have to, stop lying on their star power, because that'll get you places you need to be. But did you really deserve where you needed to be to get there? You know what I mean? That's what I look at that. So out of those 2 out of 3 fights, yeah, he demolished Rocky Fielding, but Rocky Fielding wasn't on the level of anyone. He wasn't a guy at the 168-pound division. You're like, oh man, that's a bad motherfucker. No, he was not. He was none of that. He was a tall, lanky dude that tried to go toe-to-toe with a compact puncher, like boxer puncher like Canelo Alvarez, which is short, stocky, and known to go to the body. Okay? And he's a decent puncher also. And I think he liked the idea of being at 168, but he goes down to 160, fights Danny Jacobs. A lot of, people think he lost. So instead of run that back and like, hey, let me prove you guys wrong, like he did with Golovkin, and they gave him a gift draw, right? He goes and does, hey, let me go up here, let me do whatever the fuck I want to do. But now we'll say, hey, I'm number 1 pound for pound. Vasily Lomachenko beats his fighters convincingly. We know he beat Luke Campbell. We know he beat Linares and stopped Linares. Okay? We know he beat a lot of the other fighter that he fought. Can't remember his name right now, but he beat him too. Terence Crawford, his last 3 fights. Who did he fight? Jeff Horn stopped. Benavidez stopped. Right? His last one at 140, I can't even remember who that was. Right? But all of his fights are convincing. Those guys are pound for pound, number 1 and number 2, however you look at it, slice it, dice it. They're number 1 because they have beaten their fighters convincingly and kept doing so while moving up. Canelo hasn't done that. Canelo has gift wins. Let's face it, he has gift wins. He has some very close decisions. And anytime you have a close decision to that magnitude, please, for the love of God, run it back. But no, I don't agree with him. Now, if Canelo would have said, hey, I'm top 5, okay, I'd have put him in 4 or 5. Okay. You know what I mean? I wouldn't argue with that. But him saying I'm number 1 based on my resume, well, the guys that you've beaten on that resume wasn't convincing. And that's my counterpunch on Canelo Alvarez. You guys tell me what you think. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.